when I was doing it. Now I think it's changed a little bit on the big end of retailers. But I was in charge of like men's sportswear and dress furnishings.
Oh, nice. Isn't there like a thing during Christmas time on Fifth Avenue where like, is it Bergdorf Goodman or someone?
Yeah.
What store has like really special?
Bergdorf, Saks.
And Saks.
Okay.
But Bergdorf's. Whoa.
Yeah, that's
over
right.
the top.
And so that's Bergdorf Goodman. Yeah,
That's where he worked.
Okay.
Right.
Dude, they actually just did a pretty cool collaboration with. Have you guys heard of Kith clothing by any chance?
I think so.
Yeah, it's like a really trendy brand going on right now, kind of similar to Supreme and these like younger streetwear kind of brands. But they're they just partnered with Versace and did a collaboration. They partnered with Bergdorf Goodman. No, it's pretty interesting. So I'm actually really fascinated with what's going on with men's fashion right now.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a lot of new designers, a lot of new things, and I think guys in general are just a lot more curious about looking good than compared to
they're up
the
in the
90s.
game. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like early 90s and late 2000s was a little interesting fashion phase for men.
Exactly. Not in such a great way.
Sometimes.
No, there's a few things that could come back. I look a little 90s, maybe like 80s right now.
That's all right.
A
little retro.
Yeah, there you go.
As long as you don't date yourself.
Amen.
During the 90s, I think everything that I had was like 2 sizes too big.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
It was all about the...
Like 2XL.
More.
Exactly.
Big shoulders, long.
Dude, I was
everything
in...
draping there.
My 6th grade self has bigger clothes than I do right now. And I wasn't a fat kid in 6th grade. Like, I was a skinny kid in 6th grade. I had XL. It's funny, like, seeing these huge Jenga shorts and, like, no fear and all that. Like, motivating quotes on your bag.
Yeah.
Go get it. Go for the goal. Like, yeah, man.
No shortcuts.
Little prep skip boy. Yeah. So wait, so both of you guys, it sounds like you guys were started in fashion. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, and both menswear kind of stuff, or?
I worked
women's.
with women's at Armani for many years, like 10 years. And then Prada was starting to expand, and they recruited me to open their Madison Avenue flagship.
Oh, wow.
And so I did that, and then all of a sudden, they asked me to start opening stores across the country. So we moved to Dallas, opened a store there. We were there for about a year and a half. Then they asked me to open the Chicago store on Oak Street, and then eventually run the Los Angeles stores.
Oh, dang.
So
We
that
were
was
there
over
for
the
about
course
10 years.
So were you guys doing that together, opening stores, or?
Well, he was working with Prada. I had left Armani, and I became the assistant visual director for Hugo Boss Fashions.
Oh, nice.
On the wholesale end. So I was in charge of helping roll out stores from the back end, more or less. And then I left them after about a year and a half, and then worked freelance with Alfred Dunhill, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, helping them with showrooms and doing some of their in-house fashion shows, etc.
Okay.
And then when we moved to Dallas, I was flying back and forth to New York. We were only in Dallas for about a year and a half, and then they shipped us up to Chicago. And in Chicago is where we stayed for about 5 years, and while he was opening up and dealing with the Prada store on Oak Street and staffing it and all of that, I wound up working at Neiman Marcus back in the visual department, like sort of back to my roots.
Oh, nice.
And was able to take interior design courses at the Harrington Institute of Interior Design.
Oh, very cool.
At night. So I got my degree through them, but then had also changed jobs and worked in high-end furniture showrooms, wholesale to the trade. So I got my feet wet with all of that design aspects there. Which was great, and moved around with companies, but wound up going back to Neiman Marcus for that last time before we moved to LA. And then I worked for Saks, Neiman Marcus, and then Crate and Barrel.
Crate and Barrel,
for
okay.
a period of time.
Nice.
Right. So
was that kind of like the first interior design store that you started working with? Or
yes, in terms of that kind of
that kind
work.
of product and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys fans of Kanye West by chance? You're familiar with him?
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So before he started all his clothing stuff, he actually had an internship at Prada. That's where he
Really?
chopped his teeth
Had
in
no
fashion.
idea.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Virgil, the guy who took over Louis Vuitton,
Right.
was with him during that internship. And so
Wow.
Prada was like his in to the fashion world. He worked, I think it was 3 months over the summer or something like that. I forget what album it was after, but it was after he'd gotten big and he'd kind of like had a little hiatus out of rap, and he took this he got really
Little
obsessed with
jaunt on.
fashion. Yeah.
Isn't that
That's wild.
amazing?
Yeah, and so he's always been obsessed with Louis Vuitton too.
Well, I'm obsessed with Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, since the very beginning. So like, it's kind of awesome that one of his proteges took over the men's head design for menswear and stuff like
Wow.
that.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it's a cool little loop. So I was thinking about Prada when that was happening. With Prada though, is Prada connected at all to the Marfa thing, or is that just an art exhibit?
They gave
Permission?
They actually gave money to the
Oh, okay.
foundation.
Okay, cool. Okay, that makes sense.
So that's why that building exists.
So Prada's
And
cool
it's
with it.
maintained.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's maintained.
Mhm.
Did they change out the what's inside ever?
They don't.
They just dust it. And
I
maintain
remember
it.
that collection. I remember that we were in Dallas, and the merchandise that's in that little building
Yeah.
is directly from the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's actually a real collection.
It's like a real
Yeah,
archive, yes.
yeah.
And the color of the specific color of the walls to the detail
Yeah.
of the contrasting color of the
That's
carpet
what the stores looked like back then.
is exact. It's like, you can't get more exact than that.
That makes me appreciate it more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
it's-
too. Me too. I
exactly.
didn't know
It's
that.
very specific, and it's very controlled by the visual directors
Okay.
in terms of cohesion of brand management and all of that. So it's interesting how that
That is
works.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So were those products purposely placed there, like the shoes
Oh,
and
yeah.
purses, or like there's no clothes, right? It's just like shoes.
Just
and
shoes
purses
and
there?
bags.
Shoes and
Yeah.
bags.
Okay.
And, Prada does not do anything without a plan. Like, everything they do is,
It's that shoe in that size facing in that direction. It's either front or to the right.
Yeah.
Or a stack of sweaters that is this high in this color, that's that sweater. Everything is completely controlled and planned out.
What are they trying to create when they control it to that level?
It's an art. It's a real. It's like a visual marketing art.
Yeah. Okay. So when you guys were setting up stores, did I hear it was for Prada too, or was it mostly Saks Fifth Avenue?
Yeah, no.
It
was Prada.
The reason why we moved was purely
Purely
because
Prada.
of
Purely
Prada.
Prada. Oh,
So
wow.
we got to see the country on Prada's dime.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so like what was that experience like, kind of having all of those details like so precisely managed over your head?
It's something that you learn to live with. And by the time we moved to Los Angeles, the reason why they wanted me to go there was because they were going to open their second Epicenter store.
Based on a Rem Koolhaas conceptual, right?
Remcool.
Rem Koolhaas.
Rem Koolhaas.
Koolhaas.
Huge
Architect.
architect.
Oh,
Huge
okay.
international architect. Anyway, these stores are very different from all the rest of the Prada stores throughout the world. The Epicenter
Epicenter,
stores.
that's like flagship kind of, or is that different?
It's different
Okay.
because it's not only a flagship, it is different in everything about it.
Okay.
On how it's merchandised, how it's
How it-
presented.
You can only get certain things out of that store. Like,
Correct.
And,
Okay.
and the actual stores themselves are
Works of art.
works of art.
Right.
If you, next time you go to LA,
Go ahead.
go to the one on Rodeo Drive.
Rodeo
It's-
Drive Prada, okay.
It is outrageous.
And it keeps evolving at
Yeah.
this point. They
Okay.
they've
Yeah.
evolved because retail evolves.
Yeah, retail's been evolving pretty wildly with all this kind of like internet and like it seems like the experience of going to the store is really heightened because like you need.
It
to have
really
that
has.
choice.
And that brings us really closely
To our story.
to what our standards, like from where I was trained from Saks Fifth Avenue in terms of standards of merchandising and how things are presented and how props are made and how proportion and how to execute like lifestyle arenas and the standards that and then Armani, which is completely strict and insane in their
Detail.
of merchandise presentation. It's like ingrained in us. It's something that you sort of can't get away from.
Yeah, yeah.
Our standards are like beyond high when
Yeah.
it comes to that.
Yeah, so all these little details of like a certain thing, little off, it just like drives you crazy.
Right, exactly. It's like when we walk through the store and like John's been harping on me, we need to like merchandise, but we've been so busy with interior design projects
Yeah.
that had to take wayside. But it's like, okay, we're gonna dictate certain amount of time where we're going to nitpick the store, and we'll take tables out, remove everything, and then rework it, and then reinvent every single thing.
Nice.
And that's part of the. I'm sorry. That's part of the experience. If you don't re-merchandise your store, customers come back. Obviously, we have clients. Each time they may not be able to absorb everything that they're looking at, but the next time if they come in and we've redone the store, they'll see it in a completely new light.
Nice, yeah, definitely.
Right.
A fresh opportunity for the experience and everything.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Didn't Armani do the interiors for Burj Khalifa? Like that gigantic building? I believe Armani designed it.
In New York?
No,
Burj
Burj Khalifa in
the,
Dubai.
Yeah, Dubai.
Oh,
It's,
yes,
the
I did
tallest-
read that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yes.
That's right.
So they're not just,
Yeah, man, I didn't know
fashion.
that.
Yeah, it's
They
the
got
whole
into
interior, yeah.
they got into interiors about the time that we were in Chicago.
Okay.
So we had already, left Armani.
Yeah, yeah.
But they have hotels and all
Do you have
sorts of
hotels,
things.
Armani hotels?
Actually, they're building on top of their flagship on Madison in New York. I don't know how many levels it is, but it's going to be a super luxury residential building on
nice.
top of the flagship.
Oh, nice, man. That's awesome.
And it's going to be the world of. So everything in each penthouse or apartment is just
This has
completely
been
Armani.
touched by Armani,
Oh, nice.
blessed and designed and placed.
That's
and
really
blah,
cool.
blah.
Approved.
On
Yeah.
a lighter note, Mario Batali, I don't know if he still does, but his restaurant Babbo back in the West Village, he actually bought that whole apartment. And like he has
Really?
like certain things up above, like not for customers and stuff, but for like friends and family. Like that's where they watch like the Super Bowl and they get like
How
treated.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And so like if
Very
next
cool.
time you're down in New York eating there, like there's probably one of
Look
the
up.
cooks or one of those guys up there kind of hanging out. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. I like that whole concept of kind of taking over a building and kind of really making it
Well,
your
it's
own.
taking that lifestyle boutique, which is what we do. We consider ourselves like a full service, and just to, the reason why we came to El Paso was primarily
Dun,
My-
dun, dun.
right.
My parents, got old. And my sister lives in Tokyo, and she's my only sibling.
Oh, wow.
So I found myself coming back and forth from Los Angeles because that's when it started to happen. And it got to the point where it was just, we need to be here.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
And then it was what we were going to do, and John worked for Trace Mariposas for a short period
Okay.
of time, and I worked on my art. I worked on my art for a
Okay.
period of time because I'm also an artist,
What kind of
fine
artwork are you
artist.
talking about?
Like 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional. I have conceptual pieces that I'm going to be pitching
Nice.
here in town. So yeah, and I've won some awards at little local shows and
Oh, cool,
stuff.
man.
So that's where we were, and we're still going there. But we always wanted to open up a store.
we've always
Always
wanted
wanted
to.
it.
But our jobs, I was working, 60, 70
Yeah,
hours a
no,
week,
definitely.
and so there's not a lot of time outside of that to open a store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we got here, we were like, this is the perfect place.
So
it's
we
the
tested
perfect
the
time.
markets with
Junior League Christmas
Junior League
Fair.
Christmas Fair, a 20 by 10 booth,
I know
and
we were out there. We were out there too a little while ago.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
and everyone kept asking us where
Our
your
store was.
is.
And we had already been looking for a space.
Cool.
Right,
Yeah,
but then we
at
were
that point.
approached by our current landlords, and I mean, as a New Yorker and having lived in all these other cities, I can't express how warm and fuzzy I feel about the community and how some of the people I've gotten to know, such as you
Oh, thanks, man.
and your family, and just because it is a small community, and I'm just so used to such large cities in
Yeah,
creating my own diorama of life, which is fine. But here, there's an authenticity, and there's a realness, and there's like an ingrained teamwork. It's like we're all kind of in this together, and we're all for, it's like, if you're doing this, of course we're going to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
this
gonna-
for you. Of course we're going to do a podcast with you.
Yeah, nice.
And of course you're going to ask us, and it's the sense of community has been so wonderful and such a great experience that it just keeps filling our hearts and letting us
Oh, that's
grow
good to
even
hear.
more
It's
and
good to hear
more.
from a New Yorker coming down to El Paso. 'Cause
Yeah,
El
I
Paso-
never thought in a million years
Yeah,
I would be here, really.
Amen. It's
Well, you know what? It's funny, and I say this quite a bit. Having been away from El Paso for so long and just coming back to visiting my family and stuff like that for short periods of time. But then once we got here, I forgot how amazing people are here. It's such
Yeah, it's a fun community
It's
for sure.
a
Everyone's,
great
Yeah,
community.
they're really interesting personalities, real good dynamics. And like the thing, it seems like El Paso's redeveloping a sense of pride in itself again. Like I feel like when I
Absolutely.
was growing up, like everyone wanted to leave. Everyone was like, "This is just a dust bowl. It's junk. Like don't come
That's right.
here." Even though like it was fun growing up here, we had Juarez, we had the desert,
Sure.
we had like a lot of really interesting activities. So like. I don't know. I always kind of wanted to come back, but I did have a little New York experience myself. Not as long, but like probably a quarter about the time. But
very cool.
Yeah, it's where you get your yayas out.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing place, you know.
It
Well,
If,
dude, it's just so fascinating.
It
The city,
is.
man.
Yeah.
Like,
and
there's
we're
just-
fortunate enough that we get to travel there when we go to market.
Yeah.
We stay with my mom, and I see
Oh, that's
family,
awesome.
and sometimes we check into a hotel for a couple of nights,
Yeah,
and just have like us time in the city.
Well, the hotels in New York are just so fun.
They're
yeah.
awesome.
You know, and
Yeah.
like the whole like the city of New York. And when I was in college, I actually used to hate on the city of New York. I was a big Chicago guy for some reason. I just had visited. I'd never been to New York, and then but going, man, there's just something so like at overwhelming at times, awe-inspiring at times. Like there's just so many different people, different food.
And there's a lot of sadness, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of dirt, and there's but there's
Yes.
so
There's
much.
the top of the top, the
it's-
bottom of the bottom.
It's
like,
it's everything.
And constant energy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my god.
And somehow a guy might have a bunch of alligators in his apartment.
Yeah.
And you have and you have no idea, right? Exactly, and you're riding next to him on the subway. And
Yes.
if I ever wanted to explain to people, like if they wanted to know how diverse you can actually have a city, all you need to do is literally ride the subway. It could be even the 6 train on the Upper East Side, and you
Yeah.
will have every walk of life, every echelon of money, from the poorest of poor to some really rich people. That because
Yeah.
it's the best
Bloomberg.
way
You
of
have Bloomberg next to a bum pissing on the subway.
right, and you'll right,
Or
and,
worse.
Our words.
and every nationality
Yeah.
represented.
So many
you'll see
languages
it.
just sitting down in the subway car. How
In
many
one
languages
car.
are being said? Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh,
yeah.
Flushing Meadows was what I was thinking.
Oh,
That's
yes,
where-
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
just popped in right there.
Yeah.
Nice.
They have swimming pools there, right?
Yeah, probably.
They did for the World's Fair. They had exhibitions, swimming exhibitions.
Yep.
Dude, they even have
1964.
a really cool pitch and putt. I made a hole in one on it.
Really?
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Okay.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a 45-yard hole, but
Oh.
like still, that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
It counts.
They can't go too much in like golf in New York, so it's close as
Right.
there is.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have expected,
You
Trump,
go out to Long
the
Island to
king
the
of New
country
York,
clubs.
Trump, to be into
Oh
golf
my
in
god,
New York.
yeah, I know. I'm surprised he hasn't put a golf course right.
Like Central Park.
Anything to make money off of it.
Yes. That's so funny, man.
I just thinking about the whole world of art and how weird El Paso is. I went to school for painting here at UTEP, and then I got the opportunity to go to a bunch of different schools and do painting in these schools that were famous for it. And I was surprised at how little space I would get. And how I had to get in lists in order to borrow the fancy cameras
Yeah.
that the school owned. Whereas here in El Paso, because people just kind of let you do whatever, I ended up getting the keys to one of the buildings that was not getting used, and I had to run off an entire building.
Wow.
And use
Wow.
it. And so. As soon as anybody starts making a little bit of traction here, it's like everybody's surprised and wants to contribute.
Right,
Right.
and to be like, how can we help you to make a success of what you're doing because we like what you want to
It's
do.
special, it's interesting, and
Yes.
we're not used to it, so how can we help?
Right.
Well, we when we started thinking about this store, we found ourselves having to go to Dallas or Los Angeles or whatever to go shopping.
That's kind of,
You know?
still picking up on that.
Exactly.
You guys are jumping in, which is really helpful and exciting.
Yeah.
And we, we saw the need for what we do here because it wasn't being done.
Right.
And the reception that we've received is exactly what you're talking about, or we're talking about. People from day one were coming in and were just being, they're overwhelmed with the store. They think it's amazing. and then they thank us
Right.
for like
Bringing
having
it
us.
here.
Nice.
And because the way I looked at it, it's like, I don't understand why we don't have a store like this. And if we don't, well, then we'll bring it. We'll do it.
Yeah,
We'll figure
nice.
out a way to do it. And we have. And, at first we weren't even thinking interior design. We were thinking, just lifestyle boutique. But then we realized that that part of a lifestyle boutique and becoming a full-service lifestyle boutique requires having like a hand in almost every part of your life. So it's like with you, JW. It's like we start work on your offices, and then they change, and then we start working on your house, and then it just
Can I get Christmas gifts?
right, and you get great Christmas gifts, right? Well, and it just keeps it evolves in a sense where it's like we're a part of people's lives. Like if you're throwing a party for your mom, and it's like, well, how can we make it special? You'll come to us, and it's like, well, we can do this, and this is what we can do in order to help you elevate your lifestyle.
Yeah, I like the whole experience.
And that's part of our mission is we elevate lifestyle expectations by curating, and we handpick every single thing in the store and every single merchandise. And how many chairs I looked at in order to find these chairs for you to make sure that they were going to be right.
Yeah.
And John going through sources after sources to find tables and lamps and everything.
We go to
Market
3-4 different markets: New York, Dallas, High Points, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Las Vegas is pretty good.
We haven't. That's on our
that's
list to go.
our
Okay.
next
That's our
trip.
next
Actually,
Okay.
I mean, think about all the people that show up with money to Vegas.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Just how
they
excited you get.
they
that
have really.
tourism world. Yeah.
The market that, they have markets all the time, but the market that we're going to is really the furniture market. So High Points is in the United States the premier furniture market.
Where is High Points?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
And what
We've
is
been
what
once.
is a furniture market?
It's where all the manufacturers
Represent.
Show you?
have
Yeah.
their showrooms.
Okay.
And launch their new selections of the season, their new pieces, and then they'll usually redo the showroom. So they'll repaper, repaint, add new lighting, rework the whole showroom.
Awesome.
And they're not just permanent showrooms either. They're huge buildings that have showrooms that vendors come to and set up for the week.
For the week, and it's
Yeah.
actually about to go on next week.
So does furniture seasons kind of hit similar to like apparel seasons and stuff?
It has a cycle.
It has a cycle.
Do they ever
Definitely.
match up? Like certain clothes are getting influenced by the 70s, and also the furniture is getting influenced by the 70s?
It's very interesting.
There is that.
Color, a lot of
Yeah,
color,
color, I can see
a lot
that.
of texture.
Things that are easily
fabric.
changeable will start to reference. It's like there are things that are called trends and the things that are called fads.
Okay.
Fads are something that you'll have for one season or a season and a half or two and be tired of. A trend is something that starts and plants itself. It's as an idea or a concept or a leg, like using concrete.
Yeah.
Like the legs on this table happen
Yeah.
to be concrete. Concrete is a trend. It is something that we're seeing that is in coffee tables now. Things that are used outdoors, side tables, around
something that
mirrors.
lasts.
Ping pong tables even too. I've
Right,
seen.
right, exactly. So that becomes a trend.
That lasts for 10,
Usually 10 years.
10,
So trends
15
are kind of
years.
long term kind of thing.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Usually a decade. And same thing with fashion in terms of how we always relate to the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. It's like on a decade, but they sync up here and
Sometimes
there.
they're like,
right.
Yeah, it's sort of like brass in the late 70s, early 80s. Became
Exactly.
A thing.
Right.
Really,
And,
brass was a big
and
thing?
then
Okay.
chrome. You came and
Dude,
replaced
chrome.
it.
Right.
I remember. I was in the chrome years.
Yeah.
Brass-
I thought it was. I like
And
chrome.
brass and
Brass has made a
huge.
huge comeback.
and gold leaf.
Huge.
A lot of handmade items we're finding.
Oh, handmade's huge right now.
People are getting away from the produced
Yes.
look, and that's where people like designers come in. And I think people look at the internet as like a Pinterest room. It's like I can walk into anybody's house and go like, you clicked on Pinterest and you bought everything in there.
Yeah.
And then I can look at a house or a room, and same thing with John, and we can go like, okay, there's been some input and thought process behind it that's tangible, like your home. Your home is so eclectic.
Oh, thanks.
You can tell that you have a very distinct style, and how you've worked probably with designers on fabric placement, on chairs, and such like that.
It's the
I
difference.
just thought you were crazy.
Yeah, I'm like,
And that's fine.
and we are updating it a little bit now that I like a little fiance.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what about
Yeah.
this? What about
Right.
All right.
Right.
Well, you know,
Fair
it's the
enough.
difference between just purchasing, like going into a furniture store and just purchasing, you
A
know,
room.
whatever,
Yeah.
a room.
And think you could change it with a couple of extra different pillows. That doesn't work.
You know, and
And you can tell. You can
this
see.
what we do is curated. You know, we want our clients' environment to have a curated feel, not something that we just went into a store and you know bought a bunch of furniture.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Like everyone having like the same West Elm table or something
Right.
like that. Or,
Right. Right.
you know.
I've been guilty of that a couple times.
Yeah, and it happens. But you know, you can make that table look different, placing it in different
Yeah.
ways and using
Different
it in different
accessories,
ways.
different stuff.
And we want a
It's a
traveled look too.
Okay,
You
yeah.
know, things that
represent the people that live in the home.
exactly. You know,
Nice.
and their interests
Yeah.
as well.
You know, it seems like there's this whole process and this depth of attention that people get to benefit from. And so I'm just curious about your process. Like, well, what is that like? Do you go to their existing home and
Yes.
see what they like, what they don't like?
Yes.
See what
We
they're
talk about
looking
how
for?
they live, about their children, how busy they are, where they spend most of their time, what they do, where people do their homework, where they eat most of their meals. If they watch television, where is the television?
What do they like? I mean,
You
some people
entertain.
have antiques from their grandmother, you know.
Yeah.
That they are very emotionally attached to.
You know, and how do we make those important things work?
Right.
You know,
Even
within-
though it could be hideous in our opinion, but how do you bridge that and teach
And make it work.
and make it work, and the fabric, and make it stand alone so that it becomes the thing of beauty in a space.
You know, I've been noticing that, like you said, a lot of handmade things. I think that we're so inundated, especially, you know, when we want to save money, we're inundated by all this like cheaply manufactured stuff in our lives, and our plates are cheap, and our furniture is cheap. It breaks down, you just get a quick replacement. And I guess I'm into like music stuff. So I start to get like really interested in like old hardwoods, you know, for guitars. And, like, you know, I found a Hammond at a church for $40. That's from 1937, and so
Amazing.
That wood is already like it's got something to it that you couldn't get from a brand new instrument.
Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely.
It's
That's harder to find, right?
Right.
Something that's been kicking around for decades, and it shows a little bit.
it's traveled.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It has
You
a
know?
I like
history.
that word. Traveled's a really good word to like describe that in a nice way.
Exactly.
It's
No,
like
that's not old. It's traveled.
You know, the thing about, you know, you bring up a good point. The idea of, you know, clicking on a computer and just buying something that's mass produced, you know, I realize people need to do
be
that.
able to do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And a lot of people can't afford to do what
We do.
provide.
Right.
But that's fine. We work with all budgets. But the thing is if you invest in something of quality, you will live with that for a long
A
time.
lot longer.
Yeah,
You
we've
know?
had that conversation in the office a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and
Usually
it's
I buy
important.
really good, long-lasting stuff. I just don't want to spend willy-nilly
Oh,
around.
I didn't say
Yeah.
anything. I didn't say
What?
anything in particular. Sensitive pot.
Yeah, we definitely did have a bunch of folding chairs before we got our
Right.
fancy
Right.
chairs.
And-
And they broke in about a month.
Yeah.
They
Right,
lasted that
exactly,
long.
and that's why, I mean, as for, you know, to justify the cost of these are contract grade. These are intended for a lot of use. These would be in a hotel restaurant getting sat on and used and beat up all the time. Contract fabric.
You're
contract-
not going to save
Yeah, let's-
in the long run when
Right.
you invest in.
Yeah, if you're-
You're not going to save that much money because you're going to have to replace it again and again and
Yeah,
again.
if you're there for like 5-10 years, like
Yeah.
if it's going to
Right.
cost adding up for sure.
Right,
exactly.
So let's bring, because that was a new term when I started working with you guys for designing office stuff, was contract grade, and how that's different than just your normal wear and tear from chairs and stuff like
Right.
that.
It is usually certified. It's more expensive. And it is actually structurally designed. The woods that are picked, the framework that composes it, the textiles have what's called a Martindale test or a double rub on how many times you rub it rub it twice before it starts to show wear or tear.
Oh, wow.
That's why we went with a vinyl. They're easy to keep clean. These are right, but they have a sort of like fun, playful, like cowboy leather, like look to them, distressed. But your colors, we were fortunate enough to find the same kind of textile in all of your colors of your company to represent all the brands that you are. Your agriculture, your clothing, your the purple and this. So there's a reference to a corporate identity that went into it. But contract is very, very difficult, and it usually needs to be specified by. It has like a certificate, or
nice.
You could go back if somebody were to come in here and go like, "Is this contract grade?" and call you out on it. I can show you the form that says that these are made for contract use.
The idea is higher quality, higher construction methods.
For
Hotels
usually
and
for
hospitality.
commercial.
Right.
Yeah.
Doctors' offices, hospitals, things like that.
I wonder if anyone's going to call us out for contract grade.
It's like
funny thing.
It's like
We would like to see your paperwork.
Okay, so technically, the wingback chairs for your that we just did for you, the frames are contract grade. However, the textiles that we chose, there's only one that is suitable for contract. The other two aren't.
Interesting.
And that has to do with a flammability test, and there's a codes on how long, I think it's a lit
Commercial
cigarette
codes.
for commercial code, how long a lit cigarette would stay on a particular textile before it would ignite,
Okay.
and how quickly it would ignite, and what kind of gases would be emitted from that.
Oh, wow.
It gets very technical.
Yeah.
Right.
So what about these chairs? What's the?
They're all good. They're all good.
So would they not ignite if there's a lit cigarette on
Right.
it?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right. It would melt.
We
It
don't
would
need
melt.
to test this.
Yeah,
It would
don't
melt.
test
It would melt through the fabric, and it
Okay.
would melt through the foam before it would
Catch on
start a fire.
Oh,
Right.
nice.
Right.
What about the design? How did these chairs get designed? We noticed that we sit differently on these different.
Well, we wanted something that was comfortable, that you could sit in for a long enough time and have enough meetings. We didn't see the need for arms and everything.
But is this a design that you guys choose from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through I went through dozens of chairs, and then I narrowed it down to probably about 6 to show JW. And that's important. John and I talk with our clients through the process. We want to make sure it's not just us going and saying like, "Oh, this is how your room is going to look,"
Yeah.
and screw
This is
you.
We are so not that.
We're not
people.
those people, because that's life doesn't work that way unless somebody loves what our concept is and has carte blanche and is going to be fine with
Yeah,
it.
just like do whatever you need. I love what you guys do, and like, but I
And,
don't want
and here's a check, and I'm not going to sue you if it all goes wrong, and I sign on the dotted line, and then it's all fine.
Nice.
But we don't work like that.
We collaborate
Yeah,
with
it's
our
cool. And
clients.
it's fun kind of getting to know people and kind of figuring out
Absolutely.
their nuances
Yeah.
about their personality and their habits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
and,
right.
and we want them to be happy with it. We want them to look at it and go like,
And
"Oh
live
wow,
with
that's
Live
great.
with
That
it,
looked
that's the
good.
biggest thing.
Exactly.
That's good."
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good fit.
Good
It's a
fit.
good fit.
Good fit.
That's
The
right.
same thing how it works with clothes. It's it's like we're not selling. We're making people happy. We want people's lives to be better. That's our job. If we
Nice.
do that, we've accomplished what we've set out to do.
What's the wildest room you guys have designed?
We're doing
How many
The
sex
wildest?
rooms are
Yeah, like
Wildest?
sex dungeons or like fucking arcades or like anything out of the ordinary.
there? A medical theme sex dungeon.
nothing.
Dentist office.
Dentist office.
Nothing.
Not yet.
Nothing bizarre yet. We
you
have.
guys are open to bizarreness though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Any
Yeah.
listeners out there with some bizarre tastes?
Yeah, cool.
Quirky. John is a textile fiend and buff, and I loves textiles as well.
You know, the years that I worked for Armani and Prada, so over 20 years, they're both such high-end designers, and fabric is so important. And with Armani, I really was able to hone my eyes in terms, because the differences between certain fabrics is so subtle and colors with Armani.
Oh, God.
You know, and now it's just like second nature for me to look at 20 swatches and say
Right.
this works with this and that works
Right.
better with this.
Right, we
you know?
order them, we get them from our vendors online, all the swatches, like we did it yesterday for a pillow, for a client, for a pillow. And we have a very expensive print fabric that's a velvet with a cut, that's actually a cut velvet of a dragon. And then we're doing a contrast fabric on the back and a contrast welt, or maybe fringe or a trim on it. So it's gonna have a lot of details to
Nice.
it. It's very, very cool, but it's like lay out all the colors, and I did the preliminaries on like 2 green, 2 orange, 2 blue, 2 blue. This doesn't hold, the structure of the fabric doesn't hold up with the front of the fabric. It's too weak, it's this. And then he comes in, and we do it again, and we fine tune every
Nice.
single aspect of it.
Nice. We're actually, I'm probably gonna chat with you guys a little later about our dining room. Since those 2 chairs, like I kind of wanted to keep them as like king's chairs in my dining room
Sure.
table.
Sure.
And so we're gonna like redo the pillows and the rug to kind of like all bring it
Cool.
in.
Very cool.
A fun little environment. So right now we have like kind of wave pillows in there, and then they're not really fitting right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good.
So, what kind of stuff do you guys get into lately? I mean, what you guys have such refined tastes. Like, what do you guys look at? What's exciting to you?
I think we're visually stimulated when we go to New York. We make an effort to check out things that we've read about, things that are happening that we haven't seen.
Museums, stores,
stores. First Dibs just opened a Mammoth.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
They opened in a storefront.
they
Wow.
opened a store. So
First
that's
Dibs is
our
wild.
exactly, and that's on our list.
Yeah. What is? You want to explain what First Dibs is?
It's a very high-end website that represents antique dealers from across the country
And around the world.
and around the world. Yeah.
Nice. And so it's only antique dealers. It's not like
Exactly.
any new furniture stores or anything like that.
No, they don't sell new.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I was wondering that.
Yeah. Overpriced?
A little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
but
It's-
but amazing stuff.
But
a
a lot
level
of
game.
commissions and
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just fun to
advertising fees.
look at too.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
for even just like inspiration and ideas and stuff like
Yeah.
that, First Dibs is a great kind of website to go check out, and then kind of go to maybe Pinterest and find things that are like similar to what you're finding on First
Exactly.
Dibs. Like terminology was big for First Dibs for me. Like there's a lot of like certain styles of chairs or certain styles of like certain materials and fabrics that I like really wasn't exposed to and didn't know. And so like kind of getting familiar with those was like really helpful to describe things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To be able to speak
Oh
knowledgeably
yeah, like
of.
for example, like my dad would be so funny to like work with for interior design because like colors maybe, but like certain styles of eras or certain like kind of all wood types, all these little like minute details, like that's where like a lot of the modern
People
people
get lost.
really lost because
Yeah.
like they know what they like in their head, but it's so hard to describe because they don't know any of the language behind it. and
It's
stuff like
it's
that.
so true. There are so many details when you put a room together,
Yeah.
or a house together. It matters if the legs of a chair don't really work with, and people don't think about that.
Yeah, no,
They
100%.
also don't think about proportion. Proportion is the
Proportion,
number one
proportion,
thing that I
proportion.
think we've run into with our clients that they got wrong.
Okay. What do you
It's-
mean by that? Like how would I
Table's
see
too
it?
big for the room.
They order something
Chairs are too small.
online from Restoration Hardware somewhere, and then the dang sofa doesn't fit in the room. It's too big.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
overwhelms
that type of
it.
thing.
Yeah.
You can't put side tables next to it or side lamps. And then if they're redoing the house, nobody, and it's in a huge open room. This is one of my pet things. The first question out of my mouth is there electricity in the floor?
Oh yeah.
How else are you going to have table lamps? Are you going to run extension cords all over? You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will.
I mean,
At least
if
his
you're-
extension cords
We
are
got some
nice.
good extension cords too, though. That's a nice one. Look at that guy.
if you're redoing your house,
and
like
have the means to do it,
Yeah.
put electricity
in the middle of the floor.
Because if you float a sofa and put a sofa table behind
And
it,
a
you
rug.
could have 2 lamps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
how
that's
nice
right.
to have it floating, so that
Yes.
you walk around it, it creates another element, another layer, another piece of jewelry that you can add to it. If you don't, then you don't.
What does a well-designed house do for you, in your opinion? Like, why would I care? Because, like, I have a lot of friends. I mean, not really anymore now that I'm in my 30s, but, like, in my 20s, like, especially in college era, like, dudes in college, like, we have a sofa next to a TV with an Xbox and an empty apartment.
Right.
Heard of pizza box?
Yeah, and, like, pizza boxes, and, like, we're content, but, like, what are they missing out on to have, like, the full I'm in a home experience, and, like, everything from my curtains to my pillows all kind of speak to me and make me feel somehow like what
This is, your home is where you live.
Spend most of your time.
Yeah. I mean, well,
aside from work,
you're
unless,
right.
right.
And I think that I've been there too, JW.
Yeah.
With
I've seen
with
it
the
too.
bed
I've
and a
seen it.
That's my
desk.
New York life.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that as I've gotten older, as we've grown older together, we have so many similar commonalities. And one of them is a love for design, obviously, and our environment. And when you start working on your environment, it just creates a feeling that you can't replace. You walk into your living room every day, coming home from a hard day's work, and it's just this big, I'm here.
Right. And if you have to look at a stack of pizza boxes that you put a lamp on top of, that's not a good design for a coffee side table.
Well, it affects you one way or the other, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And I think that comes with age and elevating your expectations of what you want out of your life. Mm-hmm. It's like, the only thing you want in college is, you have to get through your classes. You want to have sex. You want to have, drink beer, and you want to eat pizza. I've been there. I know exactly what it's all about. But after it's said and done, it's like, well, how come you walk into somebody else's room and it's like, well, that's pretty. How come I don't have that?
Yeah.
Because you
And just
didn't
like
think of it
yeah,
yet.
and the feeling, man, the feeling of having a well-curated environment, just like reading a book, like next
That's
to some
right.
good
Yeah.
lighting on a comfy couch.
Right.
That's like
That's right.
kind of goes with the house. It's you feel proud of it. You're like proud to walk home. You don't
And
have
go right.
Yeah,
It's
nice,
nice.
I'm home.
And it doesn't have to be extravagant. It could be like 3 beautiful pieces of furniture that make your world so much better,
When I was young, in my 20s and living in New York, my very first expensive antique that I bought, I mean, this was out of my price range, right? It took me 6 months to pay for it, was this 19th century French armoire. And that thing has moved with us across the country.
Those
to
doors
every
have been crated.
Yeah.
The mirrors have
taken
not
apart,
been broken.
put back together each time we've moved.
Sawed
And now
pieces
it's in
off
our
of it.
store.
It's in our store.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but
Nice.
it's that for me. It's the connection that I have because I love the piece, and even though we're not like French, 19th century French people, we make it work with modern pieces. And that's why we were talking about like when somebody has their grandmother's chair or whatever.
Yeah.
We make it work, and it creates this environment that's not just stayed.
Where everything's brand new out of the box.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of have a pet peeve of is like the IKEA look, where like you just take a room from IKEA and it looks like you didn't. It's not your home. It's just like you brought a store into your home and
Exactly.
everything's brand new and everything's clean.
Right, I see like the Wayfair commercials and everything just drops from the ceiling and magically and it's
Yeah.
all free delivery and isn't it fabulous? And it's like, it's okay, but it doesn't look like anything other than a Wayfair room.
Yeah.
Even West Elm, that seems to have a much more, I guess, a little bit better materials
Yeah.
and a little bit more thought out
More
design
thought out
history.
style,
Yeah,
right.
I like West Elm.
Yeah,
References.
it's good at the
Yeah.
same time.
Reference
You can
down
always
there.
kind of pick that West Elm
Yeah.
look, right?
Right.
And because you mentioned about your sister in Tokyo, I have a design question for you guys. We're gonna get nerdy with design.
Yeah, let's get it.
When I first visited Japan, I came across a store that became my favorite store in the universe. My dad's an engineer, so he's got like an engineering utilitarian mindset, and I think I inherited a lot of that from him. And I came across Muji.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and in
Yes.
New York, it's sure it's awesome, but it's very small compared to how those stores are in Japan. In Japan, they feel more like Sears. they will literally sell you from chewing gum to condoms to cars to houses.
Cars.
Cars.
Yeah,
And
damn.
they have one car with one design with no brand on it.
And that's
and
it.
it's a hatchback and that's it. And so it's uber utilitarian.
Right.
It had an aspect to it where, look, we're not going to do any extraneous design, and therefore we're contributing to not polluting and adding anything, to the world that is unnecessary. And it had this sense, one thing is incredibly boring, but when you see everything as a whole, to me it felt almost like this blank canvas that the people that live in it add all of the flavor and all of the of the brightness to that world. And so in that gamut between uber utilitarian, like austere kind of the material, what it's made of, the function, what it does.
Like
that's all you
Amish,
need.
and like,
Amish, Quaker
right.
furniture. I mean,
Quaker, right.
And all the way to this table is amazing, but you can't put a glass of water on it. The level of design.
Right.
Where do you guys fall into, and I'd be curious to why. Like,
Where do we fall?
'Cause I definitely fall more Muji style,
We are absolutely not the table that you can't put a glass of water on.
Right.
We create things that people live with.
Right.
Of
You
course.
shouldn't be afraid to use a side table as a side table.
Exactly.
We also sell coasters too, so you don't.
So you don't ruin
That's,
it.
there we go. That's the little cheat.
Right. So there's a level of lifestyle where you should use a coaster. Why? Because it's part of civilization. It's like that's why a salad fork has only 3 tines and a dinner fork has 4. I know he's shaking his
Wait,
head.
what is that? Why is that? Three tong is actually good for salad? Okay.
I have no idea, but it's smaller,
Yeah.
and there's got to be a reason behind it.
No, there is. Good design.
Hey, that guy that makes the forks needed to sell more forks.
but we. That being said, where we're not, that we do I think probably the most contemporary, or offer the most contemporary design ideas than pretty much anyone else that we've seen in El Paso.
This region.
We're constantly looking for, and we work with some of the best vendors in the country, if not in the world.
In the world, yeah.
And we do it on a project-to-project basis, and like we say, it's always about getting to know the client first, understanding what their needs are
And what their expectations
and
from
where they
us.
want to go.
Right.
Given all that, then we introduce things that we have run across in our travels
Or have searched for.
and love, and see how that can fit in. And I'd say 99.9% of the time, our clients are thrilled.
What's like the kind of the gamut you've gone from like maybe like the rancher style client to the minimalist client? Like have you kind of worked with all types of people, or there's certain types of client that kind of come to you?
We did an office way back in the beginning that was kind of like steampunk and
Really?
very
Wow, nice.
It wasn't restoration hardware, but it had kind of like an industrial feel to it.
Yeah, like what is that term?
Mhm.
Like industry or what is that? Or is
What
that-
office?
Well, the international style.
Yeah,
That's
international.
Oh,
the
right,
1950s,
right.
Everything square.
Okay,
Yeah, where it's
right.
like industrial.
Yes,
something,
right.
industrial
Definitely
something like
industrial. I was having a hard
Because
time
it was
remembering.
way back in the beginning.
Nice.
And then
But we do a lot of residential.
and we finish off a lot of projects. What we found in the beginning is that some designers have bought all the large pieces for a particular client,
And they don't know where to go.
and
after
they
that.
come to a stopping point. They hit a
Yeah.
brick wall, or something happens, and they sort of leave the client without like having finished the room
Yeah.
or things like that. And that's where we come in. And so like we've added, art and sconces and two sitting areas to a bedroom, and then redone.
I think though the question is about the varying styles.
Oh,
right.
right.
Yeah,
So
Well, what is your all's favorite kind of style? Like me personally, I'm a real big fan. I mean, I'm very eclectic, I guess, but I also like mid-century modern a lot. Like my house is Spanish, so I like to keep close to the Spanish style. But like My granddad was a mid-century architect, and I just really love like furniture in that era and like
We do
housing
too.
We do
and stuff
too,
Like
yeah.
that. And, like it seems like it's kind of
And a lot of it is also very classic at this point,
Yeah.
mid-century. If it's good mid-century modern design,
It's iconic.
It's iconic.
Yeah.
And then you can pretty much take it into any environment. What we're finding now, the biggest trend happening is maximalism, where it is hyper designed, where it's layers upon layers of textiles and styles and pieces of furniture and
Rugs
and
fabrics
rugs on top
and-
of rugs and different colored pillows
And I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people
to get
here,
their head around, right?
you know, because I think and I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people, period, because it's definitely the opposite of what we've seen for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
where everything's white and gray and white and gray.
There's
and,
like 2 pieces of furniture.
Right.
Right, and a
square
lamp.
foot.
and-
Yeah.
right.
But it's definitely a huge trend that has started probably about 2 years ago, and we're just seeing it build and build
Really
and build.
interesting.
Yeah.
And so like we're experimenting with that with the office that we're doing, where there's a geometric gray viscose rug, all in very tonal, but we have a zebra hide that's going on top of it with leather chairs, and then like a lucite table, which we interpreted as being like found at like a Paris flea market, you know,
Oh, nice.
like but vintage from the 50s.
But it's
Yeah, yeah.
not
But it's
vintage.
new, not vintage.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
new
nice.
with his existing chrome Ralph Lauren desk, and then redoing all the bookshelves.
I mean, the funny thing is Robert and I basically have a lot of maximalism in our own.
Or jeans.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's just it's just kind of a joy to see it coming back.
That was
you know?
actually, you brought up Ralph Lauren, and that was actually one of the first stores and like experiences that I started really noticing a highly curated environment. Like something like a store in New York City, the one up in the Hamptons. There's a variety of his like stores that are really well curated with a lot of cool
Oh, yeah.
furniture, a lot of cool artwork.
He's the master of creating the lifestyle boutique.
Yeah.
Okay.
He created that world of
Way before
anybody else. He is an absolute genius. He's a trailblazer. He's a control freak. He's nuts, but he's brilliant
Nice.
in the execution and the attention to detail of his world that he masters. He really is.
That really cracks me up because you have all of that with the design and his element, and then the frat scene in colleges in the South with the polo shirts.
Right.
It's the opposite pizza guy if they have nothing in their house, and like he's just touched everyone's
Everyone.
lives in a way. Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, like such a wide gamut. He's like such a special person that everyone who's like culturally opposites are all appreciating his
And
work.
and has a little piece of that world somewhere, even though you may not realize
Yeah.
it. I mean, I have it right on.
Yeah, right
here.
there. Nice.
If you want to explore maximalism, just go through his archives.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
His
just
archives.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Because
my God.
to my mind, he was proponing a sort of idealized Americana, right? Like a,
Yes, yes. A super elitism of what to achieve, what all
we
of this
aspire
can-
to.
Yeah.
Was he like one of the
The
first
Kennedys
like
and-
big American designers that was respected worldwide? Like
I believe so, along with
Oscar De La Renta.
De La Renta. I
Yeah.
didn't know Oscar De La Renta was American.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He was originally from Puerto Rico, but he was an
Considered an American designer.
Yeah.
Bill Blass also.
Bill Blass was
Okay.
prior
These are
Ralph
icons.
Lauren.
Right.
Oh,
But
nice.
Ralph Lauren started in the 60s selling ties.
Really?
Yeah.
And Brooks Brothers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow,
then
he worked at Brooks- that's
Selling ties.
Wow,
No,
that's
no,
cool.
no. He started making ties. That's how he
Oh,
started.
right.
And he went from door to door, in
Yeah.
New York, selling these ties to stores.
Yeah.
And from there, it just took off.
I can
Nice,
sell you
man.
everything else. The rest of your outfit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now it's the rest of your outfit, your home, your vacation home, your college, kids' dorm, all of that.
And there's also this person to follow on Instagram. It's Maximal Candy, if I'm not mistaken, or Maximalist Candy, and they're also reposting people's images of maximalism and stuff like that. That'll give you
Oh, nice.
an insider's view of that.
Nice, guys. Well, hey, we're kind of getting close to wrapping up. How can people follow you, get in touch with you,
Look at your work.
look at your work?
Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. We're Paradigm_Texas. Our store is on Stanton Street, and that's 2719 North Stanton Street,
Okay, that's like right by Cincinnati and
Exactly.
in between Cincinnati and Baltimore.
Baltimore. And
Yep.
what is it, Glory Road? Down
Yes.
close to UTEP?
Exactly. We're right on the streetcar.
We're in the strip where G2 is.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And so El Paso.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. It was great talking to you guys. And,
Thanks for
I'll
having
see you
us.
guys soon.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
This has been great.
Thank
Nice.
you. Thank you.
All right, listeners, have a good day. Cheers.
Bye.